Have you ever opened your kitchen bin and felt that little wave of guilt? The smell of wasted food, the sight of half-eaten veggies, banana peels, and coffee grounds, all headed straight to the landfill. We tell ourselves it's just a little bit, but that little bit happens every day, in every household, and it adds up faster than we imagine. I used to feel the same way. As someone who loves gardening and growing my own vegetables, it broke my heart to think about how much potential fertilizer I was throwing away. Nutrients that could have gone back to the soil, feeding life instead of polluting it. That's when I started to look deeper into what nature had been doing for millions of years, recycling its own waste. Fallen leaves, dead plants, fruit peels, they all return to the earth, becoming part of a beautiful cycle that never truly ends. And when I learned how to recreate that same process right at home, everything changed. But here's where the story gets exciting. Today, we're standing at the intersection of two powerful worlds, nature and technology. With AI becoming part of our daily lives, helping us track habits, monitor our gardens, and even predict compost moisture levels, we now have tools to make this ancient practice easier and smarter than ever. So in this video, I want to show you how to create compost that's even better than store-bought, using 5 simple but powerful steps. By the end, you'll see that composting isn't just about managing waste. It's about joining the natural rhythm of life and letting technology help us do it better. When I first started composting, I'll be honest, it wasn't perfect. Sometimes my compost pile smelled terrible. Other times it stayed cold and dry for weeks, doing nothing. And once, it even turned into a soggy mess that looked more like soup than soil. But over time, after dozens of experiments and a lot of trial and error, I realized something. Good compost isn't about luck. It's about understanding balance. And just like cooking, when you understand your ingredients, the process becomes simple, enjoyable, and almost magical. So let's walk through 5 key steps that will help you turn your kitchen and garden waste into compost that's richer and healthier than anything you could ever buy. Step 1. Collect the right green, nitrogen materials. Here's a secret most beginners miss. Bad compost usually starts with bad inputs. Imagine you're making soup. If you throw in spoiled ingredients, no matter how carefully you cook, it won't taste good. Compost works the same way. Most of the time, people toss anything organic into their pile, thinking nature will fix it. But that's how you end up with rot instead of soil. Your green materials, the nitrogen-rich ingredients, are the fuel that helps microorganisms grow and break everything down. Think of them as the chefs in your compost kitchen. From your home, you can use things like banana peels, coffee grounds, leafy greens, and crushed eggshells. They decompose quickly and provide the essential nutrients your compost needs. But, and this is important, avoid throwing in meat scraps, dairy products, and oily food. These take much longer to break down, attract pests, and throw off the balance of your compost ecosystem. If you have a small garden, think about adding plant leftovers after harvest, like tomato vines, bean stalks, or asparagus stems. These are wonderful sources of nitrogen, too. Just make sure they're disease-free and cut into smaller pieces for faster breakdown. Now here's a question. Have you ever noticed that some weeds or plants seem to come back no matter how many times you pull them out? Things like mint, morning glory, or horseradish? If you throw their roots into your compost pile, you might accidentally help them spread even more. Their roots can survive the process and invade your garden later, so it's best to keep them out. The same goes for anything with seeds. Tomato, cucumber, or pepper seeds can survive and sprout later when you use the compost. I call them volunteer plants. They're cute, but messy. Step 2. Gather carbon, brown materials. Now your compost also needs balance, like the yin and yang of nature. If nitrogen is the food, then carbon is the structure. It keeps your compost airy, absorbs excess moisture, and helps prevent odor. I like to think of carbon materials as the bedding for all those hard-working microorganisms. Without it, they suffocate. In fall, I walk through my yard with a rake and a smile, because dry leaves are gold. Seriously. They're one of the best and most natural carbon sources you can find. When they're mixed with your kitchen waste, they create that perfect balance between moist and dry, oxygen and warmth. If you don't have leaves, shredded cardboard or paper, without ink, works surprisingly well, especially for indoor composting setups. One of my habits is storing a big bag of dry leaves or shredded paper beside my compost bin. That way, every time I add fresh kitchen scraps, I can throw in a handful of browns to keep things balanced. It's like seasoning your compost, just enough to make it perfect. Step 3. Cut and combine. The power of mixing. This step is where many people go wrong. They throw everything into one pile and hope for the best. But remember, composting is a living process. It needs air, moisture, and the right size of materials to breathe and grow. If you toss in long, tough plant stems or large food scraps, you're slowing down the process. So here's what I do. I cut large pieces into smaller bits, maybe 2 to 3 inches long. Why? Because smaller pieces have more surface area, which helps microbes do their job faster. Next comes the layering. You don't need fancy compost bins or rotating drums. In fact, some of the best compost I've ever made came straight from a simple pile on the ground. I start with a layer of green materials, then cover it with a layer of brown materials. Roughly 50-50. Imagine building a lasagna. Each layer has its role. Greens give it energy. Browns keep it clean and structured. If you notice your compost starting to smell, that's a sign you have too many greens. Add more browns. If it looks dry and crumbly, sprinkle in a bit of water and add more greens. You'll soon start to understand the rhythm, like learning to read your compost. Step 4. Turn the pile. Let it breathe. This is the step most people skip, and it's the reason their compost turns slimy or smelly. As the pile sits, it gets compacted. The oxygen slowly disappears, and without air, your helpful microbes die off, replaced by anaerobic bacteria that produce bad smells. That's why I always say, oxygen is the soul of composting. Turning your compost once a month is enough to bring it back to life. You don't have to do it every week or make it complicated. Use a shovel or pitchfork to move the pile from one side to the other. When you dig in, you'll feel the heat. It's alive in there. That heat is nature's sign that everything's working. The microorganisms are thriving, breaking down waste, and creating nutrients for your plants. A quick tip. If your pile isn't heating up, it might need more nitrogen, greens, or moisture. If it smells bad, it needs more carbon, browns, and air. It's a bit like caring for a pet. Pay attention, and it will tell you what it needs. Sometimes I like to imagine I'm hosting a little city underground, a city of microbes, each with a job to do. When they're happy, the whole ecosystem flourishes. Step 5. Stop adding, start waiting. This is where patience comes in. Most people keep tossing new waste into their pile every day and wonder why their compost never finishes. It's like adding new ingredients to a cake while it's baking. You'll never get to eat it. Once your compost pile is about as big as you want, stop adding new material. Start a new pile for your fresh scraps and let the old one rest and mature. Over the next few weeks, nature will quietly do the rest. Microbes will finish breaking down the last bits, and your compost will slowly transform into something that looks, feels, and smells like a forest floor, dark, crumbly, and rich with life. Here's how you know it's ready. Color: deep chocolate brown. Texture: soft and slightly moist but not wet. Smell: earthy and fresh like rain on soil. When you reach that point, congratulations, you've made real compost. You've turned waste into life. So, when you think about it, composting isn't just about managing waste. It's about reconnecting with the rhythm of life that's been here long before we were. Every peel, every leaf, every bit of food we once saw as trash can be reborn into something powerful. Soil that gives life back to the world around us. And the beauty of it all? It starts right where you are. Your kitchen, your backyard, your balcony. You don't need fancy tools. You don't need to be an expert, and you definitely don't need perfection. You just need curiosity, a little patience, and the willingness to try. Once you begin, something shifts. You start noticing how waste changes, how time transforms things. You begin to feel more connected, not only to nature, but to the choices you make every day. That small act of turning kitchen scraps into compost is a quiet revolution. It's saying, I care. And that care spreads. If you've made it this far, I want you to remember, the best compost isn't just the one that feeds your garden. It's the one that changes how you see the world. So, if you're ready to join this journey, to make your own little corner of the planet greener and richer, I'd love for you to stay with me. Subscribe to the channel, share your composting story in the comments, and let's grow this movement together, one handful of soil at a time. Because in the end, when we nurture the earth, it nurtures us back.